Very good morning, friends. Today we are going to study the methods of research part 1. In the last period we have studied the process of scientific research. It means that in that scientific research process, what are the stages we have to follow, what are the steps we have to complete, and with the help of those steps how we can complete the research procedure. There are 1 dozen steps we have discussed in the last period. How many steps are there? How many stages are there? 1 dozen. 12 stages we have studied. For example, formulation of research problem. This is the first stage. Stating the objectives. Second stage. Next, review of literature. Next, formulation of hypothesis. Next stage, preparing the research design. Then next stage also we have studied determining the sample design. Next stage, collection of data. Then compilation and tabulation of data, then analysis of data. Then next stage also we have studied testing of hypothesis, and second last stage we have studied generalization and interpretation of data, and the last, report writing. In this way, these are the 12 steps, these are the 12 stages in the research process, and that research process is called scientific research process. Okay. Now, today we have to study here what are the methods of research. There are n number of methods of research, but I have made two parts of this presentation also, because there are also another methods of the research, and those research methods we have to discuss in detail, but it's not possible to discuss within one period of all methods. That's why we have to study the step by step the different methods of the research, and today we are discussing methods of research part 1. Okay. Now try to understand what is the meaning of methods of research. According to the Encyclopedia Britannica, scientific method is collective term denoting the various process by the aid of which the sciences are built up. In a wide sense, any method of investigation by which scientific or other scientific systematic knowledge is acquired. It means that scientific or systematic knowledge is acquired is called scientific method. It means that in which method scientific or systematic knowledge is acquired, different stages are followed, different rules are followed, different stages are completed. At that time, that method is called scientific research method. What is it? Scientific research method. This definition underscores the unique quality of the scientific method. Try to understand. That is the acquisition of scientific and impartial knowledge. According to Lundberg, scientific method consists of systematic observation, classification, and interpretation of data. There are three things are important according to this definition. What are those? Systematic observation. It means that your observation should be systematic. Your classification should be systematic, and interpretation of data should be accordingly. It means that these three methods we have to understand, these 3 points we have to understand under the scientific method. What are those? Systematic observation. It means your observation should be systematic, your data should be classified, and it should be interpreted. It means that how many things are important here in the scientific method? Systematic observation, classification, and interpretation of the data. These three things are very, very important, and try to understand all these three things are used, all these three steps are followed in methods of research. Okay, and what type of method? Scientific method of research. Try to understand. That's why in scientific method, systematic observation is essential. In scientific method, systematic classification is essential, and in scientific method, interpretation of data is also essential. Try to understand. It means that these three things you should have to understand, and if these three things are there, definitely you can say that method is scientific method. Okay. The main difference between our day-to-day generalization and conclusions usually recognizes as a scientific method lies in the degree of formality, rigorousness, verifiability, and general validity of the latter. This definition rightly stresses the fact that compared to the common sense thinking, this scientific thinking is moral formal and more formal, strict, empirical and goal directed. It means that main difference between day-to-day generalization and conclusion you have to understand, which is usually recognized as a scientific method. Okay, then it yields conclusion which have far greater reliability. It means that there should be reliability and not a smaller, greater reliability than the counsel of the common sense. This scientific method observes, classifies, interprets the data according to rigorous test of the verifiability. The belief in the causal relationship existing in natural and social phenomena is the backbone of the scientific method. What is the backbone of the scientific method? The belief of the causal relationship existing in natural and scientific phenomena, natural and social phenomena is the backbone of the scientific method. According to primary task of the scientific method, it is the discovery of the causal relations. Try to understand. Is the discovery of causal relations in the diverse fact under it and generalize about these. It also enable the prediction about future. It means that scientific research is also enables the prediction about the future. What will happen in the future? Such type of a prediction you can complete with the help of the scientific research also. Try to understand. Now, research methods versus research methodology. Try to understand. There are two terminologies used here. Research method, this is the first terminology, and research methodology, that is the second terminology we have used here. Research method means what? Research method refers to the procedure for obtaining knowledge based on empirical observation and logical reasoning. What is the meaning of research method? That is a knowledge based on empirical observation and logical reasoning. And research methodology refers to the logic of scientific investigation. It is a procedure of empirical investigation. It is not concerned with building of knowledge, but how knowledge is built. Okay? That is how facts are collected, classified and analyzed. It means that how you have collected the facts and figures, how you have made classification and how you have analyzed the data. All these things are included in it. The aim of research method is mainly collection, analysis and interpretation of the facts in the most systematic and objective manners. What is the aim of the research method? Try to understand. In this statement also you can understand the aim of the research method is mainly collection, analysis and interpretation of the facts in the most systematic and objective manners. Thus, the aim of the method is wider, but aim of the methodology is limited and subservient. Okay? That's why you have to understand what is the exact meaning of research methods and research methodology. After careful reading of this paragraph and after careful reading each and every statement of this paragraph, definitely you will understand what do mean by methods, what do mean by methodology, what do mean by research methods and what do mean by research methodology. All these things also you can understand. But before going to the next step, we have to understand in detail and clearly the methods and methodology. Okay. Now, various methods of the research are there. How many methods are there? Those methods also I have mentioned in this chart. There are three types of the methods. There are three methods of the research. Try to understand. First method is mentioned here, case study method. Second method is mentioned here, survey method, and the other methods. Okay, now we have to study these methods step by step. What is the first method? Case study method. What is the second? Survey method. And what is the last? Other methods are there. How many methods are there? other methods are there, and those methods also we have to understand here. Okay. Now, case study method. What is the exact meaning of case study method? Where that case study method is applied, how it is used, all such things we have to study here in this case study method. Okay. Case study is a recent development in research. Try to understand. What is it? Case study is a recent development in research. A case study refers to you studying a phenomenon. A case study refers to you studying a phenomenon through an intensive study of case. There should be certain intention, and that's why your study should be intensive, and such type of intensive study you have to carry out about the particular case. The case may be, try to understand what is the exact meaning of case. The case may be an individual, an organization, a group of a company, a community, group of community, a society, a process, or any other unit of social life. All these things are included in case. Thus, the field of the study in the case study is limited. The field of the study in the case study is limited aims at studying all aspects of social units. It is a kind of qualitative analysis. Try to understand. Qualitative and quantitative analysis. Both analysis we have to understand as a student of research methodology. Qualitative analysis and quantitative analysis both are essential here. Case study is a method of, try to understand. Case study is a method of exploring and analyzing the life of social unit. What is it? A method of exploring and analyzing the life of social unit, but that you need a person, a family, institution, cultural group, or even in an entire community. And this definition is given by Mrs. P.V. Yang. Okay, according to this definition, definitely you can understand what is case study method. Okay, another definition is also given here by the Good and Hat. What is it? Case study is a way of organizing social data. Try to understand. What is it? Case study is a way of organizing social data so as to preserve the unitary character of a social object being studied. Expressed somewhat differently, it is an approach which views any social unit as a whole. Okay, this definition also you have to study clearly. Then another definition is also given here. Case study is a form of, what is it? Case study is a form of qualitative analysis. What is it? Case study is a form of qualitative analysis involving the very careful and complete observation of person, a situation, or an institution. This definition is also given by Bynes and Bynes. Okay. Then another definition is also given here. Case study method may be defined. Try to understand why I am going to explain here different types of the definitions by the author given here. Okay, because with the help of these definitions also you can understand the case study method in various angle. Okay, that's why try to understand why I am making such type of effort. Okay, for your understanding purpose, and each and everything should be understood by you clearly. Without clear understanding, nothing is possible to understand research. Okay, case study method may be defined as a small, inclusive and intensive study. How it is? Small, inclusive and intensive study of an individual in which the investigator brings to bear all his skills and methods, or as a systematic gathering of enough information about person to permit one to understand how he or she functions as a unit of society. It means that case study method that is defined by Hassin Peo Yang. Okay, and this definition also we have to understand here. Now, what are the characteristics of case study method? We have to understand the different types of the characteristics of the case study methods. What are those? Here are four characteristics I have given here. How many characteristics are given here? Four characteristics. It means that from the above definitions, how many definitions? N number of definitions are there, but some selected definitions I have given here. And from the above definitions, we may derive following characteristics of case study method. What are those? First characteristic is there study of a social unit. The case study method, try to understand my friends, the case study method studied a subject matter which form a whole or may be treated as a unit. It is not necessary that such unit must always be a person. It can be even an institution or a group, even a community or a society, provided these are cohesive and homogeneous and may be studied as a integral one. It means that first feature or first characteristic we have to understand, case study is a study of such type of a social unit. This is the first characteristic. Okay. Then second characteristic we have to understand, in-depth study. What type of study is here? In-depth study. The other method of research study, only some specific aspects of the subject matter are considered. In other methods, specific matters are considered here. But in case study method, details all things are considered here. This method deals with each and every aspect of subject matter and studies it both intensively and extensively so that no aspect is left untouched. It means that definitely you will find there each and every item you have considered about that particular case. Not oral studies here. Okay, what type of study you have to make here in this case study? Detailed study, depth study. That's why this is the second feature, second characteristic of the case study method. Then third characteristic we have to understand, knowledge of behavioral pattern. What is it? Knowledge of behavioral patterns. The case study method deals both with what and why of the subject matter. That is, it tries to describe the complex behavioral pattern of the unit under investigation. Then it tries to detect, try to understand my friend, it tries to detect the factors responsible for such behavioral pattern. In short, case study method aims at narration. Case study method aims at narration as well as explanation of behavioral pattern of the social unit under the study. Okay, this is the third characteristics of the case study method. And the last characteristic we have to study here, the study of whole unit. The case study method pursues the subject matter of investigation as a whole unit. It tries to pursue the unitary force of the subject matter and organizes it into a integrated whole. In other words, try to understand my friends, the case study is a view. Case study is a viewpoint which sees the social phenomenon as an integrated unit having unified bond binding all its diverse elements. Okay, it treats man, family, institution or a group as a whole. In this way, the study of whole unit is possible with the help of the case study method. In this way, these are the four different types of the characteristics of case study methods. Now, we have to understand the stages for the completion of case study methods. The stages for completion of the case study method. What are the stages? And those stages also we have to understand, and those stages we have to study. What are these stages? First stage is there selection of cases and identification of situation. Second is given here collection and recording of the data. Third stage is given interpretation of data and report writing. Now we have to study each and every stage in detail. First stage I have mentioned here selection of cases and identification of situation. While taking up the case study research, a researcher has to make some important decisions for the selection of case to be studied and identification of situation. These decisions are there. Which unit has to be taken for studies? What aspects of the unit are to be studied? How many cases are to be picked up for the study? What period of life of the unit has to be studied? What are the factors influencing the life and working of the unit? What is the scope of analysis for this study? And what are the situations in which the unit exists? All these things, all these questions you should have to ask yourself. You should have to ask yourself all these questions and you have to try to get the answers of these questions. It means that if you got the answers of these all questions, at that time you can select the case and you can identify the situation clearly. That's why what is the first stage? Selection of cases and identification of situation. This is the first stage of the case study method. Okay. Then second stage is also there. What is it? Collection and recording of data. Now, after defining the problem, my friends, try to understand, after clear-cut defining of the problems of the research, researchers should use proper tools and techniques for collect and record the reliable, complete and objective data about the unit under study. Such data may be collected through personal documents. How you can collect the data? Through personal documents and in-depth interview. While collecting the data, unusual or rare cases pertaining to the social unit under the study should not be overlooked, but should be regarded as an exception. A careful collection and recording of the data is a skillful task. It means that how you can collect the carefully the data and how you can record the data carefully, that is also one type of skill, and that's why this task is called skillful task. Then next step of the completion of the case study is interpretation of data. After collection and recording of the data, next step we have to follow, what is it? Interpretation of the data. The facts collected, my friends, try to understand whatever may be facts you have collected, those facts must be compiled, must be classified, must be tabulated, must be analyzed, and also must be interpreted. It means that compilation, classification, tabulation, analysis and interpretation, all these things are essential. And skillful analysis and interpretation leads to valid conclusion and generalization. It means that this is the third stage of the compilation or completion of the case study. Okay, and what is the last stage? Report writing. After interpretation of the data, the last stage you have to study, what is it? Very important step of the case study is, what is it? Report writing. Finally, the procedure and findings of the research. My friends, try to understand, the procedure and findings of the research are communicated effectively. But how you can communicate it effectively? You can communicate with the help of the report. You can communicate effectively through the report writing. Reporting must be done in such a way that the reader can easily understand the proceedings of the case study and even verify the validity of conclusion. It means that all these things you can understand in detail. In this way, report writing is the last stage of the compilation of the data. Now we have to study what are the advantages of case study. What are the advantages of case study method? There are different types of the advantages. As per my opinion, pound dozen advantages I have mentioned here. How many? 9. First, it helps formulation of sound hypothesis. Case study method believes in uniformity of the human nature and does the in-depth analysis of the representative cases. Finally, it ends with generalization, which proves as a sound hypothesis for a research on more broader level. This is the first advantage. What is it? It helps formulation of sound hypothesis. Then second advantage we have to understand, it helps in exploring new area of research. Case study method do the multidimensional exploration of the social unit, and in the process highlight new avenue of the research where fruitful investigation may be undertaken by the other researchers. That's why this is the second advantage of the case study. Then third advantage we have to understand, it facilitates intensive study of the unit. Case study enables in-depth analysis of the social unit and enrich the knowledge pertaining to those units for the further use of the policy formation. It means that it facilitates intensive study of the unit. Then next advantage we have to understand, it produces new ideas and fresh suggestions. Case study method enables the in-depth study of the social unit, that is person, firm or community, with an open mind, and it comes out with huge wealth in new ideas and new suggestions for further exploration of the research field. In this way, this is the fourth advantage of the case study method. Then next advantage we have to understand, it aids in sampling. The case studies on in-depth analysis reveals the true characteristics of the social unit, and this is in turn helps in classifying the social units in much efficient manner while doing the sampling for the conduct for the future social research. It means that with the help of case study method, you can collect the samples also effectively. Okay. Then next advantage we have to study here. What is it? It discovers deviant units. The cases which do not fit in the general pattern and assumptions are called deviant. Normally these deviant cases or exceptional cases are not according to great importance because they are marginal and do not match with the normal ones. The nature and problem of such deviant units are brought to the limelight of the case study method. That's why this is the advantage. Next advantage we can explain here, aid to forming questionnaires and schedules. The major obstacles in the way of framing good questionnaire is the selection of queries which will yield the desired response. The case studies are immense value in this regard. They provide insights into the behavior of the social unit under the study and guide it framing appropriate questionnaires while investigating the problems related to such similar social units. Then next advantage we can understand, gain in experience. Gain in experience. Science in case study, a researcher undertakes an intensive and extensive study of the social unit. For a long period, he gains new insights of human social behavior. And the last advantage, it helps in study of subjective aspects. It means that with the case study method, you can complete the study of subjective aspects. With the help of case study research, the subjective or qualitative aspects of the social unit can be studied thoroughly. Case study emphasizes and psychological and behavioral aspects of the individual. organizations, communities. Hence, it helps in eradicating the social problems like dowry, prostitution, sickness of industrial units, and so on. In this way, these are the different types of the advantages of case study method. This is the one side of the coin. Now we have to study the another side of the coin, that is the limitations of the case study. What are the limitations of the case studies? Those limitations are also we have to study here, and those are also pound dozen limitations. How many? Pound dozen limitations I have given here. First limitation is here, false self-confidence. A researcher using case study method on account of deep and long acquaintance of the unit under the study, his multidimensional study over a period of time, is liable to develop a false conviction that he knows everything about the subject. But in reality, it is observed that many aspects of the unit are hidden about which neither researcher nor respondents are aware. It means that false self-confidence, such type of a limitation you will face in case study method. Then second limitation we have to understand, difficulties in collecting reliable data. In case study, research collection of reliable data on delicate issues such as extramarital affairs, sexual problems, industrial sickness is very difficult. How you can understand, how you can collect the reliable data? Because generally the respondents do not tell such type of the facts to the researcher. How it is possible to explain that facts in their own mouth? Okay, that's why it is difficult to collect reliable data. Then third limitation is there, false generalization. There is a tendency of researcher to draw generalization after studying a few cases which may not relevant to all the situations. Then next limitation is lack of control. In many cases, try to understand my friends, in many cases studies there is absence of control upon the respondents and researchers. The data collected in the way are generally incapable of verification. Hence, the conclusion drawn may not be valid. That's why this type of limitation is also you have to face in case study method. Then another limitation also I have mentioned here, no quantitative analysis. The case study method is qualitative in nature. It deals with only psychological aspect of the human beings. Hence, quantitative analysis is not possible. Then another limitation is also there, possibility of errors. In case study, there are number of points. There are number of points where errors may creep in, such as selection of representative cases, proper observation, personal bias, suppression of unpleasant facts, tendency to exaggerate, failure of memory, improper reporting. All these errors leads to misleading conclusions. And this type of limitation also we have to consider here about the case study. Then ad hoc theorizing. Ad hoc theorizing. In case study, instead of rational explanation, deductively derived ad hoc theorizing is very likely. It emphasizes the common sense explanation which has no proper scientific base. There should be scientific base for each and every explanation. And if there is no proper scientific base, such type of a theorizing is called ad hoc theorizing. Okay? And this limitation also we have to understand as a student of research. Then another second last limitation we have to study, expensive and time consuming. How it is? Expensive and time consuming. Case study method is costly, time consuming and wasteful in certain cases where the objectives are limited. It means that in case study method also such type of things we have to understand, and those are time consuming and expensive. And the last limitation we have to understand, what is it? Personal bias. In the case study method, there is temptation to ignore the basic principles of the objectivity in research because quite often a personal relationship is developed between researcher and unit studied. This affects the researchers emotionally and he may report conclusions which appeal to him. And this type of personal bias is also possible in case of case study method. In this way, these are also Pound-Dozen limitations. Already we have studied Pound-Dozen advantages and now we have also considered Pound-Dozen limitations of the case study method. Okay. If any difficulty will be there in your mind when you are started your study, you can contact me. I have mentioned here my email ID. You can visit here and you can communicate with me. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.